Hello. I am starting another video to do analysis. I'm gonna start with Bitcoin, and what I thought was happening so far is with the big reversal down and huge breakdowns across the board in cryptos, but I'm gonna start with Bitcoin, obviously. So this is a Bitcoin crypto watch chart. On a 3-day chart, you basically have a false break up that's broken back down. I don't know if I could still use the triangle as a measure, but certainly, certainly this is going to be resistance. This trend line. On a daily chart, we had the fake false signal surge up that completely broke down, and I am looking for a test back up to this area. Somewhere around there where I think that's gonna happen. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for, and I had orders. I wanted to go long and hedge partially, closer to here, but it got basically to it seems the exact prior high. Before turning. And so that didn't give an opportunity to get long for me. So I think that this is just a normal pullback, and then it's gonna be a huge sell down.
작은 비즈니스 운영자든 예술가든 꼭 맞는 템플릿을 찾아보세요. 드래그 앤 드롭 방식의 편리함으로 손쉽게 내가 원하는 홈페이지를 제작합니다. 텍스트를 변경.
Just need to send one email out. So yeah, again, I'm looking for more upside. Do I see anything on MACD volume? It's helpful right now? No. Um, I do notice that this declining trend line could be the top also. And that's just over 7,200. It's at 7,250 now. The 6-hour chart, nothing helpful. Just saying it pulled back. You have a reversal candle, and so I think something like this, or that is most likely. So yeah, I mean, I guess on a short term I can zoom in to see if there's any divergence on this move. There is a little bit on price going up, volume going down, which is great. That shows that there's not as much buying taking price up. And certainly it's not as strong as here. Alright, that's pretty much it for Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash has this big head and shoulders that, I mean, it hasn't totally broken down, but you know, like it's like you could say, it could still say it's at support, but it's on it. If I zoom in, it looks more broken down. But because so many other things have very clearly broken down, this looks very likely to be a true break. So this is starting to break down, as you can see. On a 12-hour chart, I want to add volume.
골프 오브 월스트리트의 디카프리오 팬이라면서 장고 분노의 추적자를 안 봤다는 거 사랑하는데 좋아하진 않는다 같은 말 놓쳤던 인생작 왓챠 플레이에서 보라.
And so there is again this reversal candle, but I don't think it's going to be anything like that. I think this is part of the Bitcoin pullback, and then that will happen. So I think, and the Bitcoin situation, it could really fail at any time, and so it's very hard to certainly I can't longing doesn't make sense, and going short, I mean, it might be safer to just wait a little bit to see if there's one more move up. This is a 6-hour chart. zoom in more to see if there's anything else I can see. There was divergence on this low, and I guess that makes sense because I was thinking 6,800 area would be a buy. I just thought it would go a little lower than it did. Nothing really helpful on volume. Do have 4-hour close Bollinger Band, so this should keep things contained for this 4-hour period. So maybe until 1 a.m. Okay. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, until 1 a.m., which is great.
심심함은 버리고 따라올 수 없는 바삭함. Let's get it.
Because in that time, if Bitcoin surges, that this is more likely to fall. In terms of support, here would be if you were to buy there. In terms of selling, again, you could say here, but I think it will depend a lot on where Bitcoin is, so I'd have to look at that. Like if Bitcoin is at 72.50, I would short regardless of where Bitcoin Cash is, because that Bitcoin resistance will likely carry over to Bitcoin Cash. This is SNT. On a long-term chart, it's just down, but we seem to have broken. I don't know if that's support even. This is more likely support, resistance. And there was a triangle here. Maybe that or the lower one, but regardless, it looked very weak. There was no, it couldn't get anywhere. It couldn't get even close. Every time it got even to the midpoint, it just sold off, and then it broke down completely. Price is getting very close to this prior low, which is also support, and that could be in part what is supporting price, but it didn't really get there. Of course, I'll feel better once that's broken. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for S&T. Except adding volume. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get much more out of this chart. This is that, and it's in this big triangle. We haven't reached support yet, which makes it more encouraging to think that we'll have more downside. It's not. This isn't really a main one I look at, but there is information on here that can be helpful. Yeah, I mean, certainly this is getting a reaction off this support area. Oh. I was kind of, I just thought maybe, I guess it could drop to there or even here. This being support, that's resistance, this is just middle. So I, like, if Bitcoin had dropped to 1600, but that didn't happen. This is ELF. This is ELF. So ELF on a 3-day chart broke down from this bear flag, which based on this measure, if I transpose that, would suggest something like that. But certainly new lows of some kind, and very likely we get a continuous trend, maybe like this, pull back, and then down. So certainly a long on or short on any approach of that trend line. Yeah, so we're getting a higher low, which suggests a higher high. But that's not like a trade that I would long. This is very bearish situation, and this is quite a distance to go, given Bitcoin doesn't have much until it has huge resistance. And this is Ethereum. Ethereum is a big one to look at. This is, you could say, a head and shoulders of some kind. That's broken down very clearly. And it is possible to have that. I wouldn't bet on it just because of Bitcoin. It's kind of like, is it possible that it will do a huge pullback? I mean, I would be somewhat skeptical of that happening, because I don't think there's gonna be a lot of buyers buying that up once that head and shoulders neckline broke, and and this lower trend line. I almost think that it would just. Certainly, I'm not going to. I don't want to bet on that happening. I can, but I would. In that case, I'd probably have to hold it through because it could. I guess it could pop higher before dropping, but I don't know if it'll get all the way there. That seems very unlikely, as it would require such a large move up in Bitcoin. I'm listening to a music station, and like every 5 minutes, there's a freaking ad. Why are there so many ads? And another one. Jesus Christ. There is a triangle here. And I'm hoping it breaks down. And one way that could happen is if Ethereum continues to be weak relative to Bitcoin on this move. And Bitcoin just gets like 7,200 and Ethereum doesn't do as much. So volume and I guess volume in MACD is not super helpful right now. Yeah, and so again, this is some sort of resistance. It's possible that if this breaks higher, that will be considered a breakout. But I'd have to see. This is RCN. It's not as exciting. It just kind of has this like horizontal channel it broke down from, and that's about it. And it's continued to drop further. Wow, it really dropped a lot. Well, temporarily it did. A lot more than others. This is OMG. OMG is sort of like this big head and shoulders that broke down. And then it had some kind of channel down before it broke down. And so it's possible we could have a retest. That could happen. I have to keep in mind that's a possibility. It's just been so weak. I'm almost thinking it's not going to happen. Alright, so I'm gonna put volume here. Yeah, it looks like I don't know if this is strong enough, like some kind of double. I don't know if this is strong enough to do that. That's a I think that's more of a worst case scenario. I don't think that is a likely scenario. So, there may be a little divergence, you could say, on that bottom, but not significantly. Yeah, there was divergence on that second bottom, which I thought I was kind of hoping it did drop a bit lower to closer to 6800, which would give me more room, lower the risk to my stop, and then lower the distance to the stop, and then make a little more on the upside and improve the risk to reward ratio a bit. So that, so that what I could make is a little more than what I was risking, what I might lose. But I missed. I guess what could happen. The risk is that I missed the long entirely. In this case, I did. Long hedge. This is a 4-hour chart.
Molti anni ci conosciamo, ma questa è la prima volta che vieni da me per consiglio o per aiuto. Nemmeno me la ricordo l'ultima volta che mi invitasti a casa tua a pigliare un caffè. Ma diciamoci la verità, la mia amicizia tu non la volevi.
So this doesn't look that strong. I'll draw that. And that could be what's going on also. So there'd be resistance here. That would be a short. This would be long. I wouldn't long this because it can easily just break through. And it's only 2 touches. It doesn't mean it's a trend line. Alright. Anything helpful here? Not really. MACD volume. Bitcoin is heading a little higher. So I just want to see how that translates. So Bitcoin is moving a little higher while there's a lot of weakness in the alts, which is actually really great because what's more often happen is that the alts represent the true market, and then Bitcoin is that like not false, but like people piling in longs into Bitcoin when the rest of the market is really weak, and then the rest of the market over eventually drags Bitcoin down.
Close your eyes. See the world as it truly is. Be the change you believe in. Create something greater than yourself.
So that, yeah, this is very constructive. The fact that everything is becoming very weak, it's great. This is wax. It just break. It was a long drop and then a break to the downside, and I expect that to continue. And what's great is this big wick, daily upper wick gotten. Certainly not bullish, unless that was like non-loaded chart or something.
Hear the music run down your shoulders. Close your eyes. See the world as it truly is.
Oh yeah, okay, so heading higher, but
Be the change you believe in. Create something greater than yourself.
this is Ven. Ven is not as reliable to use because it doesn't have as much data, and then it kind of had this big run up. That's okay. It is making new lows. And that attempt higher was like a perfect just hit up retest. It just looks very bearish. So resistance is there. That's the sell area. This is Zcash, and Zcash also has a head and shoulders. We kind of broke through the neckline and are in this channel on the neckline, but I think it'll break eventually. And this is the actual neckline. And one of two things is gonna happen. It's either this or we'll break above. I don't think we'll get back there. I think that's too much. But that would be a big sell. But if I sold here, I would have to, I guess, maybe take a loss there. But I don't know if I would do that because I don't think it'll get high because of the big resistance in Bitcoin. If I didn't have a position, I would definitely take a partial short. Okay. On 12 hours, there's nothing really helpful. 6 hour also. I would like to see divergence here. Oh, 6 hour. Oh, I was gonna say there might be a closed Bollinger Band, but it's not. And then I do have declining volume on the second rise, which is good for the short entry. Yeah. This is possibly a head and shoulders, but I don't really think it is. It doesn't look like it. It looks like a two-stage move up, and then with the declining volume, it looks like this could possibly be a top. Yeah, it could be. So, okay, anyway, this is EOS 3-day chart. There's this big trend line, but it seems to have broken it. Yeah, and it looks like it's bear flagging up. Zoom in to get more information, to see more, and maybe I didn't see something. Yeah, 4-hour Bollinger Band, which is great, which means unlikely to head much higher until for the next little over 3 hours. And so that will kind of give me time to just relax a bit. So yeah, that's the neckline. So that if it hits that, that's the sell place, not to panic. And if I catch myself like thinking, oh, it's gonna break through, usually that's a sign to just sell. Or if I'm already short, just hold through that, because that's really the fear that's kind of displaced rational thought. So, you know, again, it's important to recognize this resistance so that if price gets there, I know what to do, and then have a plan. I'm just gonna short there no matter what, unless certain circumstances that I plan out beforehand, meaning like Bitcoin at 7,500. So I think that, and then you could say some kind of support held here. Oh yeah, and it, I guess, extends out further back. So there's looks like some kind of bear flag. It looks similar to the Ethereum situation where it broke and then it bear flagged under, or it did break back up, but this seems like it'll break down. Well, I think because everything else is broken down so much. So one thing I've learned again through this experience is also wait for most things to break their necklines, because if only 1 or 2 break and there's like 10 that haven't, There's a very good chance the 8 that have that 10 that haven't are gonna have a strong support effect and cause the 2 that did break down to move back into their necklines, below their necklines. But now most of those breakdowns have happened. I almost want to add more to my OMG position, but I guess it would depend on how this breaks. And then also I guess I want to reference back wow, in July it was only 50 cents, so I do think this is a lot more draw. Yeah, this is everything is at nosebleed levels. So yeah, I'm hoping that this is just another sideways correction, and doesn't really going higher with Bitcoin maybe hitting 7,200 or something. This is Neo. IOTA is crashed. I'll just go over IOTA. On a long-term basis, you see that triangle, the breakdown here, or you could say this upper trend line there was the neckline. But either way, I would probably say the upper one is, but this horizontal was also support, and it kind of turned into a smaller triangle. Certainly a strong reversal candle. Up. That suggests that something like that could happen. If that happens, I guess perhaps it would be an opportunity to add to the short. On daily level, it was kind of just in this big triangle, starting to break down, broke back in, and then it looks like this is the breakdown out of this smaller one. It looks, and I think this is going to have a lot more continuation. I mean, I think all of them are, but I mean, we just broke through the last, very clearly the last major support in IOTA, and so I think that there could be a pullback of some kind, but I think this will break through very significantly. And it's so volatile. I don't think I could add to like one of my portfolios, but one of the ones that I don't have as much on, I think I could add to it. Especially if it gets back up to like the mid. If it gets back up to the mid 80-cent range. What I would like to see is a lot of divergence, like slowing volume, and that's what is happening. The MACD was kind of really thrown off the longer terms by how sharp this fall was, but volume is declining, and then I think a lot of people are just not going along. I think this is people taking profit. But I think people are going to re-enter short soon. But you could say this strong candle suggests that we could see a bit higher, and obviously Bitcoin rallying also suggests that. So we'll see. This is resistance. That's where I need to sell, even though I'll probably be the most scared of selling. But that's where I should sell. And then where I have the most greed of continuing to hold is probably where I should buy or cover. Because I probably let greed overtake rationality, and I have to be very careful to know when that happens, or be aware of it. And doing thorough analysis would make it easier for me to remember if I should cover and buy, and help me recognize this is probably greed taking over. This is Neo. And if, I really hope Bitcoin continues to rise, because again, there's like I had the 4-hour. I have closed Bollinger Bands on Bitcoin Cash and on EOS, which may have like a very bearish effect on prices, or holding effect. And then if Bitcoin continues to rise, that could cause Bitcoin to hit its major resistance where a lot of sellers come in, and then thereby having a huge sell effect across the board. broke down. Neo broke down from this big triangle. I guess the lower one, the lower trend line is more important. On a daily, it did make new lows, which is great. Just a reference, I just want to see where Bitcoin was in the summer, or Neo was. I actually don't know. But there was divergence, I think. A little bit on MACD. If Neo breaks this high, that would be a higher high and potentially set up for a bigger move up. So I have to be careful of that. And yeah, there was very clear divergence that, and again, that was expected because I was planning on hedging anyway or buying, but at 6,800 or just above that, but it didn't get a little low enough, so I missed that one. ETC, I can't really use ETC. Obviously, it's breaking much higher. I have a huge amount of resistance at around 20, or low 20s, but it's reacting off Coinbase news, so I can't really use this. Except for maybe saying this might be a measured move up of that distance to that, which would mean we've sort of hit our target. 12 to 1950, that's 7.5, which would say 21.5. Which we very nearly hit. So that might be it, but until you know, ETC is sort of like a wild bitch, sort of. This is Bitcoin Gold. Nothing huge to report except it broke down from a big bear flag, and there was also a lot of support at that horizontal, which it broke down from. And then it seems like this was the breakdown bear flag, and it's going to continue down. Except, and then I want to see divergence on this rise, because that means it's likely going to start falling soon. But I don't think it's visible yet. There is none yet. Not really. ZRX is not that important. It's not that I don't have as much data, and then you could say it lower load here. It lower load this area. It failed to get higher. It dropped, and that means it's gonna lower high here. But you could also say this is still a higher low of this, and that you could say is more important. So until that happens, this is not as bearish, but it's certainly not as bullish as it was before. And there was volume divergence on here. Yeah. XRP on a long-term basis was in this triangle. It broke down. Very clearly, and I think at most it'll get back to that prior support, that now turn resistance, and it'll sell off, and that will be a place to sell. If it even gets that high. Which I don't know, because it looks like it's just a mildly angled bear flag. Yeah, this looks like a very bearish flag. I don't think this has a lot of legs. But I don't want to speak too soon on that. Anyway, that's it. I'm gonna come back and finish this video later.